What's going on, Tar Heels? Jeff with the Hill Brothers coming at you with another episode, Tar Heel Olympic Spotlight. Hope you all have had a good week. The winter stuff's winding down now. We're seeing pretty much ACCs and NCAA stuff for the winter sports is all that's left. Spring stuff in getting in full swing. And yeah, so going to start off as usual with the polls and some of those stuff that some of the things that come out during the week as far as recognitions as far as all ACC type stuff and the various national different things that maybe any kind of national honors and things like that, as well as a few little odds and ends things that have popped up that involve Tar Heels or future Tar Heels. So in the case this week. So Monday again, big poll day on Monday. Women's lacrosse, no surprise really, stayed number one in the IWLCA poll, Division I coaches poll. Men's lacrosse stayed at number 6 in the USILA Division I men's coaches poll. Women's basketball after the ACC and everything, up one spot to 15 in the AP poll, and that's the final regular season AP poll. And just kind of note on the women's stuff, and we've got a little bit more of that because the NCAA tournament seedings came out right before I came to record this. I actually waited to get that stuff out so I could put that in there for the women's team. Got just of note, 13 wins in the last 15 games for the women's team, 4 quad 1 wins for them. It's been a good season, we've been a good season overall. We've talked about some of the ups and downs and some of the struggles, but again, tournament team and some exciting stuff that I'll hit on shortly. Gymnastics, stayed number 18 remained number 18 in the Road to Nationals NCAA gymnastics rankings. Like I said, gymnastics stuff, all this stuff is kind of winding down. Gymnastics is one of those winter sports that's now winding down. So men's soccer, of note with men's soccer. And they did, we'll talk about it in competition. They're doing the Carolina Cup, the exhibition stuff. So there was one of those matches that took place this week. But also of note, Top Drawer Soccer publication announced that put out this week that Carolina men's soccer right now has the number 1 transfer class coming in the country. They've got Josie Shelb from Rutgers coming in. It's a four-person class. Josie Shelb from Rutgers, and then a trio of folks from Vermont. Of note, Vermont won the NCAA men's soccer championship in 2024. 2 of the people that we have transferring were on that team. Weren't starters on that team, but did play roles in an international championship. So we've got some of that coming to Chapel Hill. Ryan Zelafro, Nico Lobus, and Nick Lockerman are the 3 that are from Vermont coming down to Chapel Hill. Burlington, Vermont's a nice area. I've been up there for work back in the day a little bit. It's actually a pretty cool area. I like that area of the country. But I think they're going to find Chapel Hill much better. And we know Rutgers, New Jersey. Yeah, come on. Chapel Hill, much better scenery. So Tuesday, rolling in Tuesday, typical stuff that comes out on Tuesday. The women's and the men's tennis polls generally come out for the ITA, or the rankings, I should say. Women's tennis actually, despite not losing, did actually fall 1 spot to number 4 in the ITA Division I Women's Collegiate Tennis Team rankings. Men's tennis, again, we talked about last week with the losses, fell 8 spots to number 65 in those. If you remember, I've talked about the rankings for men's and women's tennis, and I will call them out when I'm talking about it because they are still ranked, even though they go 1 to 75. So you're going to see in the team rankings, goes all the way down to 75. And as long as we're in there, I'm going to call it out. So, but yeah, it fell 8 to number 65 in the ITA Division I men's collegiate tennis team rankings. Wednesday, and on Tuesday for men's lacrosse, USILA always announces their team of the week, and Brady Wambach actually was named to that USILA Division I men's lacrosse team of the week. So congrats to Brady on that honor. Wednesday, actually the last of the kind of ranking stuff came out on Wednesdays. Wednesday this week didn't have anything Thursday or anything like that, which typically is not usually on Thursday stuff. So, but indoor track and field, the USTF CCCA did their final polls. We'll talk about the NCAA indoor championships actually took place this past week, but on Wednesday they did put out the last checkpoint, as they call it. I think it was checkpoint number 7 along the way in the rankings. The men were up 1 spot to number 31. The women were up 2 spots to number 30, and that's going to be leading into the NCAA indoor championships, which we'll talk about. And then in the clipped scoreboard national collegiate golf rankings that generally come out weekly, women's golf was up 1 spot to number 13. Men stayed at number 17. So those are the rankings and everything for the week, and things like that. A couple of the other housekeeping type thing, or not, I keep saying housekeeping, but you know what I mean. I'll figure out a better term for it and stop calling it housekeeping. It was announced Monday, the United States under 17 women's soccer national team announced their 21-player roster for the final round of the CONCACAF qualifiers, and Carolina did have a freshman, actually the only college player on this round's roster, but Deuce Stanislaus from the University of North Carolina was announced to that team. So congratulations, Deuce, on those honors. Honor of being able to do that. Again, I talk about it all the time with especially with women's soccer, with the call-ups and things like that to these national teams. It's invaluable experience being able to play with other great players and then internationally playing. You know, it's stuff that, you know, just is going to pay off in the end. You would think it should pay off in the end for them once they're in Chapel Hill and competing in the Carolina Blue. So again, all those kind of things we can get for the players and get those experiences, man, it's awesome. It's good stuff, and it's only going to make them better and make Carolina better in return. Fencing, if you remember, the regionals took place. The regionals took place last week, and coming off the regionals, we had 10 fencers that were named to the all-region team. Going through that, Youssef Shamel, no big surprise, regional champ. First team men's epee. Peter Bruck, first team men's full. Eldon Wood got first team men's saber. Dagny Johnson, second team women's saber. Vasco Atanasov, second team men's saber. Elizabeth Zigalo, second team women's epee. Finn Buckman, honorable mention for men's saber. Boris Mugga, honorable mention men's epee. Anna Tamirayev, honorable mention women's epee, and Marisol Kapalua, honorable mention women's epee. So congratulations to them on those all region honors. When we talk about the upcoming stuff, there is going to be some NCAA stuff coming up. The championships coming up this week, so you know we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in what's upcoming schedule for this week. But then next week we'll have the results and be able to talk about the results on that stuff. Especially with Youssef and folks like Youssef and Peter Bruck, Eldon Wood, Dagny Johnson. There's legit shots at some NCAA placements with those fencers. Their performances have been strong all year. The UTR Sports unveiled next thing, and it involves women's tennis. UTR Sports unveiled their 2026 Universal Tennis Foundation Herd Award champions. So we had two women's tennis players at Carolina receive that in the past. Fiona Crawley and Jamie Loeb. Anything about women's tennis, they are absolute legends for what they've done at Carolina in women's tennis. Reese Brantmeyer joins them as a Herd Award champion this year for 2026. Basically, one of the kind of the lowdown on that and what it really means. Herd Awards they're $100,000 grants that are given every year to one male and one female American collegiate tennis player. So it's given to help assist in the player's transition to professional tennis. We talked about Reese and all she's done and what her career looks like. It's, adding the Herd Award is just another thing to her trophy case and her list of accolades, which when her career is over, and I run down the list of things, I probably spend the time on here to run down the list of her awards, because I will at that point, because they just are that good. It's early to call it, but she very well could wind up being a Patterson Medal winner. I could see it very easily. I could see Reese being a Patterson Medal Award winner. So we'll see if that comes to fruition down the line. But ACC player, ACC stuff that was announced. Also, I touched on Brady Wambach from men's lacrosse's USILA Team of the Week honor, but the ACC Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week, and IWLCA Offensive Player of the Week for women's lacrosse. No big surprise. Chloe Humphrey honored this past week. Had a monster week. Monster week last week. If you remember when we talked about all the things and all the huge numbers of goals we scored against a number 11 ranked Clemson and a number 21 ranked Pitt team. She had 12 goals, 4 assists, 9 turnovers calls in those wins. All those obviously went towards her getting those well-deserved awards. I say it all the time. She's gonna win those. She's gonna win those countless times. Again, 30 career games now, including this week, including the women's lacrosse matchup this week. 30 career games, and she's, like I said, just a sophomore, already won the Tewaaraton women's or the lacrosse Heisman, basically. She's going to be one of those when it's over with could possibly be on one of the iterations of Mount Rushmores of Carolina athletes, and we've got a lot of them. If you went to break it down, we could actually almost do it by sport, because boiling it down to one thing of athletics for Carolina, all put together. I've seen these discussions on Twitter before, and you always leave people out because you can't. You got 4, and we've got just so much. You could really do it by sport, and and it would be such a strong thing. But anyway, I keep saying it every week because her name keeps coming up every week for everything she does. ACC gymnastics announced their performers of the week on Tuesday. Sydney Seabrooks for maybe the second time this year. Actually, no, first time this season. First time this season, she was actually the newcomer of the week. That was announced on Tuesday afternoon. So awesome there for Sydney. We talked about her numbers. She's been specialist of the week. Has been specialist of the week before this season. So just a freshman, has been strong, especially on the floor. Back in January when she got specialist of the week, she had back-to-back 9.95s on the floor exercise. Her career is going to be really bright. She had a 39.450 all-around score against number 13 Minnesota last week, as well as a career high 9.9 on the beam and 9.9 or higher on the floor, which has been the 8th time she's done that this season in gymnastics. Definitely been a bright spot for gymnastics this year, which had, in the duels, again, I've talked about the scores haven't been terrible, and the ranking is 18th in the country, which really goes off of the qualifying scores. The qualifying team scores, the averages more or less. So I've talked about how strong generally the scores have been. You know, you come out the wrong way on some of the duels and things like that because of that. But honestly, the scores is really what matters most. I mean, you want to win a dual meet, tri meet, quad meet, whatever. But in the end, just how high your scores are is really what matters. And despite a sub 500 record in meets for Carolina, still ranked number 18 because of the scores have been pretty high, obviously, and sometimes we've gone up against higher ranked teams, especially that have good scores, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But yeah, Sydney is one of those folks that just a freshman, and how she continues to develop under the tutelage of Coach Durante and the staff is going to be something to see. On the fencing, again, now on Tuesday, Monday we just talked about the all-region honors. Tuesday, they did announce the qualifiers for the national championships, for the NCAA championships, which are going to be coming up this week. We have I lost my stat. I lost my number. I lost my stat. We had 5 qualify. We did have 5 qualify. That's Peter Bruck in men's full. It's going to be his second time in the NCAAs. Men's Pay Youssef Shamel, his first selection, but he's a freshman, and he was actually the only freshman to be crowned a Mid-Atlantic South Regional champion. So again, it's just shown how strong Youssef has been this year. Women's Pay, Marisol Kapalua, her first selection to the NCAAs. Eldon Wood in men's saber. 3rd time now Eldon has been to the NCAA fencing championships. Dagny Johnson in women's saber. Dagny's first selection to the NCAAs. So again, we'll mention when they are coming up at the end of the episode here, and then look forward to next week when we come back here next week talking about how things went. Women's basketball, a little bit of women's basketball news coming up. Nyla Harris, senior Nyla Harris has been named as a finalist for the 2026 Lilly Women's College All-Star Game. So that's going to be taking place April 4th during the weekend of the Women's Final Four. So, Nyla's been one of the top seniors in women's college basketball, and good chance to hopefully get to play in that game. So Wednesday, also on Wednesday, the seeds were announced. The seeds for NCAA wrestling championships, which are coming up this week also. The seeds were announced, and the first round matchups were announced for our Tar Heels that are there. Remembering we have 6 that qualified. We talked about last week based off of their finishes in the ACC. We did not have any at-large qualifiers. This year. Was thinking maybe we might sneak in. An Ethan Oakley or maybe a Robert Platt. Really, I thought Robert was kind of an outside shot. Ethan Oakley, I thought might be able to sneak in at large. Did not. So, hate that for Ethan. Ethan's puts an end to Ethan's NCAA career. And it's been a good one between App and Carolina, honestly. Like I said, I've talked about some of my feelings and how some of my disappointments sometimes with how Ethan wrestled. It is what it is. You're always going to have that. Nobody's ever going to be great all the time, obviously. But in the end, Ethan, the 2 years Ethan had here at Carolina were awesome. And, so looking forward to seeing what happens with the Tar Heels, though, that are here and going. So we have, like I said, 6. At 125, Kyson Turakina gets the number 19 seed. I keep saying Tyson. I've done it all year, and I haven't gotten it right. I don't think I've done that. I think that's like a new thing the last couple of weeks where I've accidentally said Tyson instead of Kyson, and part of that's probably because his last name begins with a T, so it's I want to alliterate, and I don't get the alliteration, but I want to put it in there somehow. But Kyson, number 19 seed, first round matchup is going to be against number 14 seed Jacob Moran from Indiana. Luke Simcox at 141 gets the number 12 seed. Luke's first round matchup is going to be against number 21 Tyler Wells from Oklahoma. 157 Laird Root gets the number 30 seed, and Laird gets the honor of taking on right out of the gate the number 3 seed Meyer Shapiro from Cornell. Number 3 seed obviously tells how strong Meyer is. Meyer is a heck of a wrestler. Meyer is one of my favorite wrestlers to watch. But Laird's been good this year. Who knows what can happen? The betting odds and things like that will tell you that Laird probably doesn't have much of a shot. Yeah, wrestling is one of those things. Anything can happen. Stranger things have happened in the NCAA championships. Big time upsets. Let's see what happens. 165, Bryce Hepner gets the 9 seed. Bryce is going to take on Sean Seafelt, the number 24 seed, out of Penn. 174, Colin Kerrigan draws the 27 seed, earns the 27 seed. And Colin is going to take on back-to-back ACC champion, the number 6 seed from NC State, Maddie Singleton. Maddie, like I said, back-to-back ACC champion last year and this year. Also named most outstanding wrestler of the ACC championships this last week. So you remember the ACC championships were finishing up as I was recording last week because I was watching Luke. I was watching Luke's championship match at 141 as we were going, and but yeah. So Maddie from NC State, number 6 seed at 174. Colin Kerrigan for us, number 27 seed, gets to take Maddie on, and hey, again, see what happens. Good stuff. And finally, the last wrestler we've got qualified at 184, number 18 seed Jake Daly draws the number 15 seed from Ohio, Sal Perini. So we'll talk about it. When we sit here next week and I come back to y'all, we'll talk about how the NCAA Wrestling Championships went for Carolina. Yeah, hope springs eternal. Every time you get a new chance to step on the mat, you never know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens. Now moving on to competition. Actually, I'm going to stop there before I do that. Before I move on to competition, kind of the last thing, and it wasn't a competition, but it's kind of the highlight. I'm going to put it as the highlight for this week, and it's probably going to be the featured title and the thumbnail for the episode. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to go with that, but it's probably going to be around or involved around women's basketball. On Saturday, it was announced, the brackets came out Sunday night, 8:00. Saturday, it was announced the 16 host sites for first and second round were announced. Carolina is one of them. There will be NCAA women's basketball first and second round action in Carmichael Arena. Just another chance if you haven't, tickets are on sale. We'll talk about times you're looking, for Carolina. We'll talk about everything going at this point as I'm recording. The times are TBD. So we'll hit on it as we go on the what's coming up in the week. But yeah, 6th straight season, 33rd time overall. Carolina women's basketball has made the big dance. Again, 94, one national championship to our credit. We are in the Fort Worth Run 1 region, taking on, as the 4 seed, taking on the number 13 seed Western Illinois. The winner of that takes on the winner of number 5 seed Maryland against number 12 seed Murray State. So for Coach Banghart, it's her 14th overall tournament, 19 seasons as a head coach. Get us Carolina looking to get to we have 19 Sweet 16s, so we're looking to get to our 20th Sweet 16. Sets up really nice that the road to that Sweet 16 does run through Chapel Hill for us. That's that's all you could ask for, right? That's all you can ask for. Just kind of season and recap up to this point, just some little tidbits. 14 ACC wins this season, most in the season since 2012 and 13. That 14 ACC wins is a Coach Banghart era best at Carolina. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Get out there if you can. The game's going to be played. Our first game is going to be on Friday. Again, time TBD at this point as I'm recording, but pay attention to the UNC socials and everything like that to see when it is, and if all possible, get you some tickets. Get out there and check it out. NCAA tournament action in Chapel Hill is awesome. So and we get that opportunity with women's basketball now. So what more can you ask for? Show out, be loud. Let's give them the ultimate home court advantage in the NCAA tournament. Moving on then to the rest of the now the basically the competition for the week. Men's golf was finishing up the hot collegiate down in Florida, and wound up with a fifth place finish as a team, led by Grant Rossich, who had his first career top 10 individually. So, and remember, we were ranked 17 last week, stayed 17 the previous week, stayed 17. There were some good teams in that field. Second ranked Auburn was in that field. 11th ranked Texas Tech, 6th ranked LSU, top ranked Virginia was in the field. They actually placed 6th, 3 strokes behind us. So we actually bested the top ranked, the number one men's golf team in the country in that event by 3 strokes. So looking forward to what finishes or what continues, what continues for men's golf for the spring. They won't be back in action this coming week, but they will be back in action on the 23rd and 24th of March, again, down in Florida. So, we'll talk about that in the coming weeks as the return to action goes, the upcoming week schedule. NCAA Zone Diving Championships, which are the qualifiers for the NCAA tournament for diving, men's and women's diving. The qualifying times and everything for the, if you remember, for the conference or for the swimming championships are based off recording the NCAA standard times and the conference championship stuff. The diving is different because they have the zone championships to then determine that. They're kind of like regionals, I guess you could say, essentially, because there are several of them across the country. We did have several men competing, and actually I think just one woman competing. One of our women divers was the only one competing for that, but she did work. Sophia Knight was the lone representative in the zone diving championships for Carolina. And out of diving is for men and women both, 1 meter springboard, 3 meter springboard, and platform. And Sophia qualified in all 3. She finished 9th in the 1 meter to qualify for the NCAA diving championships. She finished 9th in the 3 meter, and she finished 2nd in the women's platform. So again, or the platform, obviously. So Sophia's going to get a chance to compete in NCAA diving championships, all three disciplines, so to speak, of diving. So, yeah, she's done a great job this year. She's really come on, and again, she's following some big old shoes in Aranza's footsteps, basically, and all Aranza did at Carolina with her NCAA and ACC championships and things like that. Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. She's been strong, so I can't wait to see what happens. But then out of the men, we had a host of men competing in the 1 meter and the 3 meter, and then a few men competing in the men's platform. The only qualifier we got out of that for the NCAA, the punching their tickets to the NCAA championships, was in the men's platform, and Cyril Mejia finished 5th to punch his ticket to compete in the NCAA diving championships. So we do have, again, we have two divers that'll be going to the NCAA diving championships. But again, I'm going to call out Aranza's brother Rodolfo Vasquez, Chris Bowler, Carter Lofton, Conrad Eck, all took place and competed in the zone diving championships. Came up short, but again, excellent effort from them all season. Looking forward to seeing what can happen in the future. But they deserve the call out for competing in the zone championships and also doing what they've done this year. They've all had strong moments. So track and field, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned the indoor stuff coming up when I was talking about the USTF CCCA rankings that were the final rankings for the indoor season were out on Wednesday. And then on Friday and Saturday, the indoor championships took place. We had five that were going overall. We had competition from we were competing in the women's 800 meter, the men's 5,000 meter, the women's distance medley relay, and the women's 3,000 and the men's 3,000 meters as well. And coming out of that, so on Friday, we had a semifinal and two finals take place. In the final, Michaela Page, again, one of those performers that's been strong in the past in the NCAA stuff. Michaela did qualify, did push herself forward, qualify in the women's 800 meter for the finals that would take place on Saturday. But for the finals that took place, the final events that took place, men's 5,000 meter, Colton Sands finishes fifth. So fifth place NCAA finish for Colton in the men's 5,000 meter. That also earns Colton first team All-American in that event. The women's distance medley relay team of Sydney Mascarelli, Delia Martins, Reese Dalton, and Vera Schoberg finished ninth in the distance medley relay with a third all-time Carolina time in the women's distance medley. That ninth place finish earns them second team All-American honors in that event. Rolling on to Saturday as everything wraps up, as the action would wrap up. The women's 800 meter finals, Michaela Page comes in seventh. That earns Michaela first team All-America honors in that event. Vera Schoberg in the women's 3,000 meter finishes sixth, earns herself first team All-American honors in that event. And Colton Sands in the men's 3,000 meter comes in 10th after actually started out, I think, 12th or 13th. And then there were some reviews and some DQs. Colton winds up 10th. Which is good enough to earn Colton second team All-American honors in that event. So when all was said and done, and the points were tabulated for the indoor NCAA indoor championships, the women's team finishes 36th with 5 points accumulated, and the men's team finishes 39th with 4 points accumulated. So had some high points and some successes for the indoor track and field season. Outdoor track and field season is coming up. It's the last now with the action Saturday and Sunday with rowing. Outdoor track and field will be now the last spring sport that is yet to kick off that we will still be talking about in the countdown. That I'll still be counting down the days for. So looking forward to seeing how it transitions from the indoor to the outdoor and how things continue to progress. Women's tennis was in action a couple times this past weekend. They were specifically on Friday and Sunday. Both of them took place in the CUNY Tennis Center in Chapel Hill. Women's tennis, like I said, fell to number 4 in the rankings from 3 to 4, despite not losing. A couple ACC foes come to town. Notre Dame on Friday. Carolina gets the 4-0 sweep. Got the doubles point. And then obviously, the three singles matches that finished were pretty easy ones. Yeah, well, they're pretty easy ones. We did finish all 3 doubles matches. They were all 3 finished. Sometimes, you get 2, and that's all you need. All of ours finished. Maddie Zampardo and Susanna Maltby got a 6-2 win. Alanis Hamilton, Tatum Evans got a 6-3 win, and Reese Brantmeyer and Anna Fry got a 6-4 win in doubles. And then as far as what finished in singles to make up the 4-0 score, Anna Fry got a win. Anna's 93rd ranked singles player right now. Maddie Zampardo got a win. Anna's was 6-1, 6-3. Maddie's was 6-1, 6-2. And Thea Radman ranked 111 as a singles competitor, got a 6-1, 6-1 win. So in all those, and then in the unfinished, number 2, Reese Brantmeyer, number 18, Tatum Evans, number 7, Obi Kajuru, all of those 3 singles matches were unfinished. They were all leading. They were all up a set in theirs, and Obi's was almost done because she was 5-3 in the second set. So hers was very close to finishing. Moves Carolina to 6 at that point, 16-1, 4-0 in the ACC. Rolled into Sunday. Louisville Cardinals came into Chapel Hill on Sunday, and they kind of met. They're not kind of to it. They met the same fate as the Fighting Irish did on Friday. They got swept 4-0. And again, it was Maddie Zampardo, Alanis Hamilton with a 6-2 doubles win. Susanna Maltby, Tatum Evans with the 6-2 doubles win. And Anna Fry and Obi Kajuru, I believe, with a 6-2 doubles win. Those were again, we're switching up. You get some of these, and we're switching up. Coach Calbass is switching up some of the doubles teams. That was Anna and Obi's first time paired together, and again, they got a dominant 6-2 win there. I like the different pairings. I like to see how it can shake out. You never know what you stumble upon with when you pair up, when you get a pair together that hasn't played together before in competition like this. They do it in practice, obviously, sometimes, but you get them out there against live action, live competition, and you see against another team, and you see what happens, and it's just always kind of interesting for me to kind of look at that and see how that goes. Maybe it's just me, but the 3 finished singles matches. Number 7, Obi Kajura got a win. Number 93rd ranked singles, Anna Fry got a win, and then Thea Radman, 111th ranked singles player, got wins. Maddie Zampardo, number 7, Obi Kajuru, and number 18, Tatum Evans were all unfinished, and were all, they were all tied or leading, actually. Maddie was 1 set apiece, but was leading the 3rd set. And then Alanis was about to win, and Tatum was only a couple points away from winning, and she had to lead in her second set after winning the first set. So that moves women's tennis 17-1 on the season now, 5-0 in the ACC. Just continues to be strong. A lot of pieces, a lot of really good pieces on that team, and it's fun to see how they get mixed in also with singles play and who goes from week to week in singles. Finally, now in ACC action, I mentioned it when she first came in, but after Maddie Zampardo transferred in from state, I was looking forward. She'd always been a really good, especially a really good doubles player. She was ranked up to number 2 doubles team in the country with her doubles partner from state at times. But to see her finally get to play and then see how it's going, it's been fun to see that. Keep following them as they go on the road to a championship. Men's tennis was also in action. They were on the road in Virginia, up in Blacksburg on Friday, and Charlottesville on Sunday, and it didn't go well. Men's tennis has been, we got the upset over the number 12 team a few weeks ago, number 12 ranked team in the country a few weeks ago, and I thought we kind of turned a corner, and then we turned around and we lost to somebody that I was either unranked. Well, we were unranked at that time. We turned around and lost to. Oh no, that's right. We were unranked. We beat the 12th ranked team and then lost to a team that was ranked in the 40s. So good with the bad there. Come in Virginia Tech. We come into the week ranked 65th in the ITA poll, like we talked about at the beginning. Virginia Tech got the doubles point. And they took a 3-0 lead, and then we battle back a little bit. Obviously, get two more. Looked like, hey, we might be able to get it, and it just didn't roll our way. Lost 4-2. It feels like it's going to be one of those seasons for men's tennis where it's going to be a little bit of a scuffle all the time, unfortunately. But the team's going to keep working. They're going to keep putting forth the effort. So we'll see how things pan out. We'll see how things pan out. That dropped Carolina men's tennis to 9-6 on the season, 2-3 in ACC play. Turn the page on Sunday. Go from Blacksburg to Charlottesville. Taking on the Cavaliers, the number 2 ranked Cavaliers, the number 2 team in the country. Virginia Cavaliers actually got the doubles point, got the first singles match that finished. We're up 2-0, and then Virginia ran it. Virginia ran it, won the next 4 singles to take the 4-2 win. I like the fact it showed me a little something. I like the fact that we come back from one of those losses that I say you just can't have. You can't lose to Virginia Tech the way it's been this year for them, and the way we finally get into the rankings a little bit, and then we start to falter a little bit. So that Virginia Tech loss is one you can't have. You go to Virginia, highly ranked team, one of the best teams in the country. And you come out, get the early lead, and then Virginia plays like Virginia, quite like they're capable of, and like they've shown, and come out with the 4-2 win. You can take a little bit from that because you were able to come out and you didn't get swept, and you not only didn't you get swept, but you got the doubles point, which again, like I've talked about time and time again, you always like to get that. And to get that doubles point, Rowan Jones and Anthony Wright, who were a few weeks ago doubles team of the week, took down the number 9 doubles team for Virginia, and that was actually the doubles point clincher. So, you like to see that. That was obviously something you like to see. But then when it came to the singles, they were either ranked higher than us or we were both unranked on that one. And they were we didn't push anything to 3 sets. Everything was in 2 sets, was in straight sets. But we had some battles. We had some 4 points, some 6-4, 6-2s, 6-2, 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. I think the effort against Virginia is a little more indicative, honestly, of what we can do. Again, given Virginia's number two team in the nation. So on to the next, as they say, though, and that's, we're going to get a 4-match homestand coming up. We'll get a 4-match homestand coming up. And that's actually, we'll close out our home slate. Our home slate when it comes up. So, but we'll talk about that as we go for the week to come, and what's going to be in competition. Does drop to Carolina. It's the 3rd loss in a row for Carolina now, obviously, which is another little bit of a low point there. Hopefully rebound, see how it goes. Again, I think there's stuff to build off of the Virginia, even though it was a Virginia loss, it was a loss to a really good team that, again, we had the lead on. So we'll see if we can build off that momentum and take something from that. Drops Carolina 9-7 on the season, 2-4 in ACC play there. Gymnastics concluded their regular season on Friday night, senior night, taken in a tri-meet in Chapel Hill, and Carmichael taking on number 19 Penn State. And then Nebraska, unranked Nebraska, Carolina again coming in number 18. After two rotations, actually had the lead. After the vault rotation and the vault and the bars, which are our first two rotations, had the lead. Then came in on the third rotation, which is the beam, and really just had all kinds of problems. Really just had all kinds of problems. The high score we got out of that was JoJo Balahovic with a 9.825. That we had a couple nines in there. We had like a 9.2 in there. The score that got dropped was like an 8.95, I think. So the beam rotation score, total score was a 46.725. And when you're looking at all of our other rotation scores were north of 49. We had a 49.275 in the ball, a 49.225 in the bars, and then finished up on the floor strong, which we've been doing all year. On the floor, which we've been doing really strong all year anyway. You go on and get a 4.9325, which is our highest rotation score of the night, but just could not recover from the 4.6. I mean, that's 2.5 points. That's 2.5 lower than everything else. And basically it put us third. It put us third in that tri-meet. So we finished the season on that one. Basically, essentially as it scored, take a loss to Penn State, who had the high score of 196.875, and a Nebraska who had a 195.650. So yeah, I mean, we were right there again. We had the lead after two rotations. We had the lead after the two rotations. The beam, if the beam is even on par to average for what we've got, we're coming out of there with a win, or at least a second. But as it stands in the record book, it's a loss to Penn State. It's a loss to Nebraska. 8-10 on the season, 1-5 in the ACC, closing out. But again, the senior night, go back if you haven't. Go back if you haven't on the UNC Gymnastics socials. Look at the senior night and look at the tribute postings for each of the seniors on the team. The Gwen Finks, the Kaya Forbes. Those are people. Those are two folks in particular that have given so much to Carolina. I was watching the end of. I caught the end of it on ACC Network Extra. Actually, I didn't see all of it, but I did catch the end of it. And at the end, you generally in gymnastics, you'll have your run six out there for each event, and then the top five are the scores that are taken. But sometimes you'll get an exhibition or an extra rotation, extra one or two gymnasts in a rotation that get to perform routines. They're not scored routines, they're exhibitions, they're extras, but it's a lot of times, a new routine somebody's trying out and they want to get out there and do it in front of people and, in a live setting, so to speak, a competition setting. So you'll get that. It might be a new, either a new routine or somebody or a new event that somebody doesn't generally try in competition. I thought it was really, really cool. Gwen Fink, Gwen wasn't one of the gymnasts going in floor exercise, but the meet finished up with Gwen doing one of those, being one of the rotation extras and getting to perform the floor exercise routine for the final time in Carmichael in front of the home crowd. That was cool to see. That was really cool to see for her to be able to do that. She's one of those, like I said, that's given over the last 4 years, she's given so much to the program. So again, thank you for the seniors on that one. ACC championships are coming up this coming week. We'll talk about that when we get to the competition side, or when we get to the what's next side of things to end out the episode. Rolling on to women's lacrosse. We're only in action on Thursday this week. Out in California, Berkeley taking on Cal. I mean, we had men's tennis. We had baseball out there this past weekend for a series. We had a softball out there for a weekend series. And I think they went out on Wednesday. And then you got women's lacrosse out there taking on Cal on Thursday. And I mean, it's what you would expect. Number one team in the country. Cal coming in unranked. Carolina came out firing, didn't look back. 20-3 win over Cal. Noteworthy because that is the program record 30th straight win for women's lacrosse. Little side note, interesting coincidence, you decide. 30 career games, so that dates back to the beginning of last season. We were undefeated last season. That also dates back to the beginning of Chloe Humphrey's time in Chapel Hill. I talked about Chloe earlier with her Player of the Week and National ACC Offensive Player of the Week, National Offensive Player of the Week. That's not the first time she's won those two this season already. Noteworthy though, and I will point out that I did make note, Chloe only had 2 goals. She had a few assists in there too, though. She had some assists in there. I think she had 2 goals, 2 assists. But out of her 30 career games, that is now only the 5th time she has not recorded a hat trick. So she is human, I guess. But nonetheless, her on the field always, she still did work. Obviously, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points there. But then you get other, you get other, you get some of the other stars and absolutely fantastic players. Easy for me to say. That'll just light up the net anyway. Jumped out to an 11-0 lead there through one quarter, and again 20-3, just kind of cruised in there. Felt like we probably could have scored about. I mean, the 27 we had earlier this year. It felt like we probably could have 27, I believe, was the program record. It felt like we probably could have done that too. We probably could have got that same. It really did. It really kind of felt like we might have been able to do that same deal. I won't say we took our foot off the gas. I don't know if that happened. But anyway, so either way, it's a cruise. It's a cruising win. Again, 30-game winning streak, longest in the nation, and the longest in our longest in our program history. It's the 6th longest streak in NCAA history at this point. Kylie Motis did get a hat trick, 13th of her career. Eliza Osborne got her 9th hat trick of her career. Addison Patillo, career high 5 goals, 8th hat trick of her career, including 3 games with 4 goals in her career there. Kaylee Harden matched her season high with 7 draw controls. Sarah Gresham, kind of a milestone deal. Sarah Gresham posted the 300th draw control of her college career. So, it's one of those things. There's, and those are names. I just went through a couple of those names. In the times I've talked about, women's lacrosse on here, I don't believe I've actually even said Kaylee Harden or Sarah Gresham's names. Those are 2 that they're always doing something, but their names I don't mention their name. I haven't mentioned their names yet. So they're no fault of their own, because like I said, they've been doing work, but sometimes they get overshadowed by some of the things that you're seeing from the Chloe Humphreys of the world, Eliza Osborne's of the world, Darcy Felters. I mean, those players that we tend to get a little more of the notice and notoriety. But again, that's kind of another reason I do this is, because I get to mention these people's names for you might not hear them as much. So anyway, that was the only action for women's lacrosse this past week was that Thursday matchup. They've got a couple ranked ones coming up though. So they've got a few ranked ones coming up in the next little bit though. So they've got a 4-game homestand, getting ready to kick off. We'll talk about the beginning of that and what's upcoming. Men's lacrosse only had one contest this week. That was on Saturday. Neutral site down in Charlotte, taking on Penn State. Men's lacrosse number 6 in the country. Penn State was 9th in the country, and Yeah, ninth in the country. Sorry. And kept Penn State into single digits. Carolina got the 10-8 win. It's the first top 10 victory this year for us. Moves us to 7-1 on the season. Like I said, I think the men's lacrosse 7-1 on the season. We've played a lot of really good teams. We'll see. The ACC is going to be strong too. We'll see how that comes out. We've got another ranked team coming. We got a ranked team coming to Chapel Hill this upcoming week that I'll mention. Actually, lead the all-time series over Penn State 11-0 now. So that's a little bit noteworthy. 6-0 this season when allowing single-digit goals. 20-0 when doing that over the last 3 seasons. And I'm trying to look and see, make sure I had the stuff down. If there's anything else I wanted to kind of call out off that. If there's anything I wanted to call out off that. Hold on, I'm just thumbing at my notes real quick, if you would allow me that. I will say, let me say this. Anthony Rayo led all the players with 3 goals. Mason Suchek had a pair of goals in the first quarter. And yeah, Brevin Wilson had 2 goals. I think Brady Wambach had 14 wins, 10 ground balls. Yeah, so that's the action there. It's kind of some of the call outs there. Again, ranked team upon ranked team upon ranked team that we're going to be playing between ACC play and some of the other stuff coming up. We'll talk about what's coming up this week though, because like I said, we do have a ranked opponent coming into Chapel Hill this coming week. We do have a ranked opponent coming into Chapel Hill this coming week, so we'll talk about that when we get to what's next. And really the final thing, well, I will say, okay, on Saturday, like I said, the College Cup, the exhibition men's soccer stuff that's been going on. Carolina, we played, took on UNC Wilmington, the Finley Fields on Saturday, cruised to a 5-0 win. We are actually, that moves us to undefeated in the Carolina Cup now. 3-0 this spring in that. Bertel Rygard Hansen, 4 goals. 4 goals. So monster day from Bertel. Defense was stout. First clean sheet of the spring as far as shutting the opponents out. So that's looking good. Got some time off for some spring break. Time off for spring break on that one, and then I've got another match, another one of those spring exhibition match type things coming back up towards the end of March that we'll talk about against High Point that we'll talk about when we get down the road there. But last and certainly not least, though, in the competition this week, rowing kicked off their season on Melton Lake in Oak Ridge, Tennessee at the Oak Ridge Cardinal Invite. And I talked about how we finished last season. I've talked about it in the past a few times, how we finished Coach Aaron Appel's squad finished last season 25th ranked in the polls, in the final poll. But then when the preseason polls came out this year, we were not ranked. I don't know if we received votes because it doesn't show received votes in that poll as I can see it anyway. So I'm not sure how that goes, but we wound up taking on we took on some ranked squads. We took on some ranked squads on Saturday and Sunday in Tennessee, the likes of Duke, the likes of Navy. And man, it was a strong performance. It just really was a strong performance. We got wins on the Saturday morning session. We got wins from our 4th varsity 8, our 3rd varsity 8, our 2nd varsity 4, our varsity 4, and our 2nd varsity 8, with our varsity 8 coming in with a 2nd place finish. Then in the afternoon session on Saturday, we got wins from almost everybody. Again, so the morning session, I'll recount it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the 6 races in the morning session, we got wins and then we got a 2nd. The afternoon session, fourth varsity 8 gets a win, third varsity 8 gets a win, second varsity 4 gets a win, varsity 4 gets a win, second varsity 4 gets a win, and then our varsity 8. I stapled my paper, and I think I might have. I thought I might have stapled over something. I did not. And our varsity 8 in the second in the afternoon session on Saturday gets a third. So extremely hot finish, or hot start. Excuse me, hot start to the rowing season. Rolling into wrapping up that open regatta, that the opening regatta of the season on Sunday, and then come in on Sunday, and again you've got all those boats going again. You've got the fourth varsity 8, which comes in second on Sunday. The third varsity 8 comes in first. So this in the varsity 8 races, the third and fourth varsity 8s were in the same race. Third varsity 8 comes in first in that race. The fourth varsity 8 comes in second in that race. Duke and Navy trailing behind on that one. The second varsity 4 finishes second in their race on Sunday. The varsity 4 finishes second in their race on Sunday. The second varsity 8 finishes first in their race on Sunday. Varsity 8 gets a second place finish on Sunday. So, and again, those are against ranked teams. The Dukes and the Navies, man, they've always been, as long as I've kind of really been kind of keeping up with things on rowing more the last couple of years, quite honestly, if I'm being honest with you, for Carolina anyway. The Dukes and the Navies are traditionally good there. I talked to y'all before. I mentioned to y'all before how rowing or crew was a huge thing in my high school. I went to high school up in Northern Virginia, Potomac River. It's there's regattas everywhere all the time. Crew is a really big thing. So it was, and I had a girlfriend at the time actually that rowed crew at least one year when we were in high school when we were dating. So it's something that I've always kind of paid. I've known about it, never quite paid a whole bunch of attention to it, but it's fascinating. So as I'm starting to pay attention to more of the stuff like that for Carolina and to kind of become more well-rounded, it's just really it's caught my eye. So again, awesome start to the season. They are going to be back this coming week, and we'll talk about that as we wrap up this last little bit. And what did I do with my paper? Y'all are going to have to bear with me because I just lost my paper. See, live TV with no net. When I'm flipping over my notes, I flipped over my notes and hid my paper. There it goes. And I hid my paper that has that I write down the upcoming week stuff on. I found it. So anyway, so that wraps up the competition for the week. Now, again, what we're going to find with this coming week in the action, you're going to see a lot. You're going to hear a lot of NCAA championship stuff. I told you the winter sport. This is all the winter sport stuff that's wrapping up, and kind of slowing down, calming down, however you want to put it. Nothing going on Monday. Tuesday, women's golf kicks off the first of 3 days. Or first of 2 days. It's 2 days. It's a 2-day event in Hawaii. So, let me follow that. Let me check that real quick. I'll tell you what. Let me check that. I only wrote down Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm assuming that means it's only a 2-day event. Yes, it's a 2-day event. So they're going to have, they'll spread the 3 rounds over the 2 days. You get that sometimes where you get the first 36 holes. First 2 rounds will be on the first day. Wind up the tournament with the last 18 on the second day. That looks as how this is going to play out. So yeah, women's golf will be in Hawaii. Women's golf is going to be in Hawaii for the Dr. Donis Thompson Invitational on Tuesday, kicking that off. Tuesday also in Chapel Hill. Women's lacrosse welcomes number 6 Florida into Dorrance Field. That's going to be at noon on ACC Network Extra broadcast, and it is Fan Appreciation Day, free admission. So if you have the ability on Tuesday at noon, get out there, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. I know the weather's supposed to be really bad on Monday. Today, as you're listening, Monday, as you're listening, today, as you're listening to this, we're supposed to have a lot of severe weather, like possible tornado stuff, like seriously good tornado possibilities. A lot of the schools around here have already canceled school for Monday just because of the possibility of the life-threatening tornadoes and some of the stuff that's in the forecast. If you're in this area, if you're in North Carolina and in the path of any of this potential area coming up, I hope you stay safe. I hope you have power to watch this. But if you don't, the bigger picture, stay safe. Stay safe. Prayers for everybody on that everything's safe, everybody is safe, and you know makes that everything without any harm. Wednesday will continue again, like I said, the women's golf out there in Hawaii for day 2 and the final day 2 and the final day, which is the final day of that event. Wednesday also kicks off first day of the NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships. The men's and women's swimming divide up their championships. They'll do women's is 1 week. Men's is going to follow the week after. But this coming week is going to be women's swimming and diving. Wednesday is the first day of that. That's going to be in Atlanta. Then rolling to Thursday, the NCAA Wrestling Championships, one of my favorite events, if not my favorite event in college sports, is going to kick off on Thursday. We talked about the qualifiers for Carolina. The brackets are out, so to speak. The rankings, the first round matchups. We mentioned those earlier. Taking place in Cleveland, Ohio. You can find the action on ESPN and ESPN Plus. Plus does a really good job, though. If you had the plus of being able to see all the different mats and everything like that, it's cool. It's worth it. Especially then you can start throwing multi-view in there. I believe always fun. For the ADD people like me, it's great. Then on Thursday, also the NCAA championships in fencing will kick off in South Bend, Indiana. Again, we've talked about the 5 Tar Heels that are going to be taking part in that event. Women's swimming and diving NCAA swimming and diving championships continue on Thursday in Atlanta. Friday, rolling into the weekend. Wrestling, the NCAA championships will continue in Cleveland. Again, ESPN Plus on that for broadcast. Fencing NCAA fencing championships will continue in South Bend. Women's basketball, we talked about it. 4 seed Carolina going to take on the 13 seed Western Illinois in Chapel Hill, Carmichael Arena. Time to be announced on that. Time as yet to be announced on that Friday matchup. So look, pay attention to the Carolina socials. UNC Go Heels, the Go Heels account on socials, or the women's basketball account on any of your socials that you have, if you have any, just to see when the time is going to be on that, so you can, like I said, it's a chance to see NCAA basketball action in Chapel Hill. Doesn't happen all the time. Hopefully the first of many to come now down the road with Coach Banghart, but definitely opportunity there. Swimming and diving, the swimming and diving championships continue on Friday for the women in Atlanta. Men's tennis on Friday is going to welcome number 34 ranked Clemson Tigers into Chapel Hill Trinity Tennis Center, 5 p.m. on that one. Doesn't have a broadcast listed. Most of the tennis don't, actually. I don't think any of the tennis really ever do. I don't remember seeing many of them there. Saturday is going to wrap up wrestling, the NCAA Wrestling Championships in Cleveland. It's going to also, no, actually, it's not going to wrap up. Continuation of the NCAA Fencing Championships in South Bend. Gymnastics, ACC Championships in gymnastics will take place on Saturday in Greensboro. set to be broadcast on ACC Network at this point. Rowing is going to be in action in High Point. Don't have only location I have on that is High Point, North Carolina. Don't know who's going to be taking part. What's the regatta in particular or anything like that? But that's what's on the schedule for women's rowing, or rowing, since we don't have a men's rowing at Carolina. Swimming and diving is the NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships will conclude on Saturday. And then we've got 2 lacrosse matchups on Dorrance Field on Saturday, both to be broadcast on ACC Network, according to the schedules. Women's lacrosse starts it off taking on number 16 Boston College at noon. And then men's lacrosse takes to Dorrance Field to take on the 13th ranked Army Black Knights at 4:30 p.m. Dorrance Field again. Sunday wraps up fencing, NCAA championships in South Bend, and then men's tennis on Sunday will take on Georgia Tech, the visiting Yellow Jackets, in Chapel Hill at the Cheney Tennis Center at noon. That wraps up the week in action, the coming week, and what's going to be going on with the Olympic sports. Again, men's basketball, they're in the dance. They're a 6th seed. They're going to be going in Greenville, South Carolina on Thursday against VCU, the 11th seed VCU. I'll mention that. And then softball and baseball, which again, separate podcast now that Alan and I have kicked off for that on the Hill Brothers platforms. Full Count Carolina. If you have not seen it, we record on Thursday nights, drop it on Friday mornings, and drop it on Fridays early in the day generally. And, talking about the previous week in softball and baseball, as well as a little preview of what's coming up. Softball is in Chapel Hill. Actually, softball and baseball both are here this week in Chapel Hill at home. Softball's got a 3-game series coming in with Stanford, and baseball has got the Louisville Cardinals coming to town. So, again, good action there. Good action coming up there. Full Count Carolina, Hill Brothers YouTube account. Check that out. It'll drop on Friday, like I said. And the last thing, I told you, one spring sport left counting down. And as of Monday, that is outdoor track and field, which will kick off their season in 10 days. So that's it. That's it. And that's all, y'all. Thank you again. Appreciate y'all listening. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, share this with your friends. Let's get the word out there about all the Olympic sports and non-rev sports that Carolina has. That, like I said, a lot of our most successful sports really come from this group. The women's soccer. Coach Dean Smith famously said we're a women's soccer school. Field hockey, women's lacrosse, men's lacrosse, all the, I've talked about golf is ranked. The golf teams are ranked. Track and field, they, in the 30s, but they're still ranked, and they're still competing in some events for national championships. All this stuff, swimming and diving are competing in the NCAA championships. Rowing is off to a strong start. Fencing, we've got regional fencing champions. As a regional fencing champion, that's a freshman this year. Multi-time ACC champions in fencing the last few years. A wealth of good stuff that goes on here at Carolina. I'm just trying to get the word out about it. So share this out. Share it off your Facebook account. Share it off your Twitter account. Tell your friends about. Share. Point to the YouTube. Point to the YouTube page for the Hill Brothers. All this stuff is up there. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all listening. Let me know what you like and what you don't like. As always, have a great week. Again, if you're in North Carolina, in the path of the severe weather that's coming today, Monday, as you're watching this, please stay safe. And as always, y'all, go Hill.